blood on the streets, what they tried to hide after the attack. Subscribe for more true crime. Like, comment, and help uncover the truth with us. Screams echoed through the night as flashing red and blue lights filled the narrow college streets. Students ran in every direction, crying and tripping over backpacks dropped in panic. A broken phone buzzed beside a pool of blood near the curb. The air smelled like smoke, fear, and something no one could ever forget. A lone shoe lay in the middle of the road, next to shattered glass and an overturned bicycle. The sirens grew louder, but the truth, what really happened that night, was already slipping away, hidden under chaos and confusion. Someone knew more than they were saying. Someone was trying to bury the truth before daylight came. Just hours earlier, Lincoln College was alive with laughter and weekend plans. It was Friday night, a movie marathon in the student center, pizza boxes everywhere, and music spilling out of dorm windows. Friends waved across the courtyard, the air thick with late summer warmth. Among them was a quiet senior named Ethan Miles, a journalism major who rarely joined parties. That night, though, something felt different. He was restless, uneasy, like a storm was brewing behind the smiles. His best friend, Zoe Carter, tried to cheer him up. "You're always thinking too much," she teased, tossing a popcorn kernel at him during the film. Ethan forced a smile, but his eyes kept drifting toward the window. Outside, he noticed two unfamiliar men standing near the parking lot, dressed in dark hoodies, watching the crowd through the glass. They didn't look like students. When Ethan blinked, they were gone. Later that night, after the movie ended, Ethan and Zoe walked back toward the dorms. The campus was unusually quiet now. A thin mist rolled across the streetlights, and in the distance, they could still hear laughter from the student center. Then, without warning, a loud bang.
One.
Then another. Screams erupted. Windows shattered. The world spun into panic. Ethan and Zoe dropped to the ground as students scattered in terror. From the corner of his eye, Ethan saw one of the men in black sprinting through the alley with something metallic in his hand. Then a flash, bright, blinding, and silence. When Ethan opened his eyes, the street was empty except for the distant sound of sirens. Zoe was gone. His hands were trembling, covered in dust and something darker. Blood stained the street beneath him, but not all of it was from strangers. As police cars surrounded the block, Ethan realized something was very wrong. The story they would tell the world wouldn't be the truth. And someone was making sure of it. The morning after the attack, Lincoln College looked nothing like the peaceful campus it had been the day before. Yellow police tape wrapped around every corner, blocking students from walking through the courtyard. Reporters stood outside the gates shouting questions, cameras flashing in the soft morning haze. Helicopters circled above as officers moved in and out of the dorms carrying boxes of evidence. The news headlines read, "Campus Terror, 4 dead, 12 injured in late-night shooting." But what caught Ethan's eye was a smaller line at the bottom of the screen, "Suspect still unknown." Ethan sat on the steps outside the library, hands trembling as he scrolled through messages on his phone. Everyone was asking the same question. Where's Zoe? No one had seen her since the shooting. The police said they were doing everything possible, but Ethan could tell something was off. They weren't asking him what he saw. They were avoiding it. When Detective Laura Briggs finally called him in for questioning, her tone was calm but distant. She flipped through her notepad without looking at him. "You were near the student center when the shots were fired, correct?" Ethan nodded. "Did you see who was responsible?" He hesitated, then told her about the 2 men in black hoodies. But she only wrote a few words and closed her book. "We'll look into it," she said flatly, standing to leave. Hours later, as night fell, Ethan walked past the blocked-off street where the attack happened. The smell of smoke and iron still lingered. He crouched near a drain, noticing something shiny half-buried in the dirt, a small brass keychain with the initials ZC. His heart skipped.
Zoe.
He slipped it into his pocket before anyone could see. Back in his dorm, Ethan replayed everything in his mind. The men outside the window, the flash, Zoe disappearing. He opened his laptop, pulling up student security footage that he'd accessed through his journalism club login. Most of it was static, but one frame made him freeze. There she was, Zoe, just seconds before the explosion, talking to one of the hooded men. Ethan zoomed in, pulse racing. Her expression wasn't afraid. She was whispering something, almost like she knew him. Before he could take a screenshot, the screen glitched and the file disappeared. Deleted remotely. Someone was watching him. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a blocked number. Stop digging, Ethan. Some things are meant to stay buried. Ethan's breath caught. His hands shook as he stared at the message. He looked toward the window, the same place he'd seen the men that night, and swore he saw a shadow move just beyond the glass. He wasn't safe. And worse, Zoe might not be missing. She might be part of what they were trying to hide. Ethan barely slept. Every sound outside his dorm made him jump. The warning message replayed in his head like a broken record. By dawn, he'd packed his backpack and left the building, heading straight for the journalism lab, the only place on campus still left unlocked for 24-hour access. If someone was trying to erase the truth, he had to get to it first. The air was cold, and fog drifted low over the quad as he hurried across campus. Broken glass still covered the pavement near the student center. The city had started cleaning, trying to erase the blood from the streets. But the truth was still there, hiding in plain sight. Ethan slipped into the lab and opened the backup drives he'd hidden days earlier. Inside were security logs, footage timestamps, and access records that the police hadn't released. One name appeared over and over again: Professor David Kern. Ethan frowned. Kern was Zoe's mentor and the head of the school's behavioral research program. He'd always been quiet, a little strange, but respected. According to the logs, Kern had entered the student center 30 minutes before the shooting and left right after. But the strange part, his ID had been used again, an hour after the lockdown, from a remote location outside the city. Just then, Ethan heard the creak of the door behind him. "You shouldn't be here, Ethan," a voice said softly. He turned and froze. It was Zoe. Her eyes were red, her clothes wrinkled, but she looked alive and calm. "You need to stop," she whispered. "You don't understand what's happening." He took a step closer. "You were with them, Zoe. I saw the footage. You knew one of the men." She shook her head, tears forming. "They made me." Professor Kern's team. It wasn't supposed to go that far. It was an experiment on crowd panic, funded by a security agency. The gunmen weren't supposed to use live rounds. But when things spiraled, they tried to cover it up. They erased the footage, cleaned the scene, made me disappear. If you tell anyone, you'll end up like the others. Ethan's heart pounded. So the police. "They're part of it," she whispered. "They just want the story to die." Before he could reply, a loud bang echoed through the hallway. The lights flickered, then went dark. Zoe grabbed his arm. "They found us." He grabbed the flash drive and ran with her toward the back exit. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Outside, the streets were soaked from a late-night rain, and the orange glow of streetlights reflected off puddles that looked almost like blood. A black SUV screeched around the corner. Men in tactical uniforms jumped out, shouting. Zoe screamed, "Run!" But Ethan turned back toward the lab. He needed that evidence. One of the men raised a weapon, firing a single shot. The flash drive slipped from Ethan's hand and hit the pavement. When he looked up, Zoe was gone again, swallowed by the darkness. The SUV sped away, leaving only silence behind. Ethan picked up the drive with shaking hands, staring at the flickering police lights that now filled the street. He realized something chilling. This wasn't just a college tragedy. It was a cover-up rooted deep inside the system. As dawn broke over the city, reporters were already calling it an unresolved campus attack. But Ethan knew what really happened. He uploaded the files to the cloud, his heart racing as he pressed send. Minutes later, his phone buzzed again, another blocked message. "You should have stopped when you had the chance." The screen went black. And for the first time since that night, Ethan finally understood. The blood on the streets wasn't just from the victims. It was the price of truth they tried so hard to hide. If this story shook you, the next will haunt you. Subscribe. The darkest crimes are just emerging.